Bande Rupa Sanatana Raghujagam Sri Jiva Gopalako.
I know if you're here, you must really want to be here, since Vaseshika Prabhu is giving his amazing dynamic seminar in the huge hall. Confirmed. All right, and children are fine. We like children. As long as she's not screaming, no, that's fine. I have a mic so I can out-volume her. So as long as she's just making happy, normal children noises, that's fine, as long as it's not screaming. Okay, so we're doing now part 2 of Manah-siksa. This is the Splendid Instructions to the Mind, written by Raghunath Das Goswami, commented on by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And we've produced here a new translation, which we have some available at the back of the room. And in addition to Bhaktivinoda's main prose commentary, we have his songs on each verse, first time that's been published. We have 12 new full-color illustrations for each of the verses that were commissioned for this work, 120 black and white illustrations for Bhaktivinoda Thakur's commentary. So if you just go through the pictures and read the captions, you'll get like 20% of the book. So I wanted to do a very, very quick review. How many of you went to part 1? Okay, about a third. So what I did was, I actually created a new slideshow this morning, so I can very, 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 very quickly go through part 1. I'm hoping to do it in less than 10 minutes. And I'm planning to end the seminar at 11:30 instead of 11:45. So those of you who haven't picked up a book, we have time to pick up a book, and then you have time to get a good seat for the entertainment, so you don't have to be in anxiety. So this book is important because it's what's called a padati. Pada means foot or step, hati means progress. So this book gives us step-by-step progress as to how to attain spontaneous love for Krishna in Vrindavan. And I find it a very deep book, something that really gets to our heart and really challenges us to be authentic. It's also a very important book because it establishes that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati and Srila Prabhupada established a society that followed Lord Chaitanya's plan for attaining spontaneous love of God. And there's a chapter about that in the book. Manah-siksa is divided into 3 main sections. The first 3 verses deal with the qualification for attaining Krishna in Vrindavan. The next 4 deal with the path and the obstacles that keep getting deeper and deeper and more subtle. And then there's 4 verses dealing with how we act in perfection and 1 benediction verse. So in the first verse, Raghunath Das Goswami says we should have great love for our gurus, Shiksha and Diksha, anyone who helps us on the path, seeing them as our dear friend. We should have great love for the process of surrendering to the lotus feet of Radha and Krishna, seeing them as our only life and soul. Great love for all of the holy places in Vrindavan, the temple, our altar in our home. Great love for the advanced devotees who live in Vrindavan in their mind. Great love for the intermediate devotees of any tradition, whether or not they live in Vrindavan in their mind. Great love for the beginning devotees, the teachers of morality and religion. Great love for the mantras, like the Gayatri mantra that we chant. Great love for the holy name. So not doing anything mechanistically, and this is our oil painting for this verse, Nandagram as described in Ananda Vrindavan Champu. Now, in addition to love for all of these, again, this is a review, and if you think she's going too fast, you're right. I'm going way too fast, because this is a review of what we studied on Friday. In addition to great love, one should make an effort and not leave one's spiritual life up to luck, and one should give up pride, because as long as we hold on to pride, we cannot make any progress. Okay, in the second verse of qualification, Raghunath Das Goswami tells us to give up dharma and adharma, to be free from both pious activities and sinful activities, and to follow what I like to call the secret agent principle, that we're pretending that I'm somebody's wife or husband and son and daughter, and I'm a banker and I'm an accountant, but who I really am is simply serving the Lord. And I engage in offering all my activities to Him. I don't identify as a good person in this world or as a bad person in this world. He says we can stay one pointed to Krishna by seeing Lord Chaitanya, the son of Sachi, as the same as the son of Nanda Maharaj. And our painting for this verse shows Krishna, the son of Nanda Maharaj, and Srimati Radharani, and there's a wonderful story behind this painting. He says, boy, this projector isn't as good as the one we had in the other hall. He says that we should see the Guru as the dear friend of Krishna. So we're one pointed to Krishna. We also love Guru. How? By seeing that Guru is Krishna's friend. In the third verse of qualification, Raghunath Das Goswami talks about life after life. Like Rukmini, we should be willing to endeavor and undergo austerities for as many lives as it takes to attain Krishna. And he also says that we should follow in the footsteps, follow the instructions of Swami Damodar Goswami, Rupa, and Sanatana. And here we're showing their foot as being full of jewels. In other words, don't invent our own process. And also in the book we talk about how Swami Damodar taught the inner and outer path of spontaneous love. The difference between regulated bhakti and spontaneous bhakti is regulated or vaidhi bhakti is done when one is half asleep and one is motivated primarily by logic and fear, with some taste. And with Raga Bhakti, one is starting to awaken to one's particular relationship with Krishna and is following out of joy. And we explain how the Gaudiya Math logo indicates how Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati was teaching spontaneous love for Krishna according to Raghunath Das Goswami. Whether one is following out of fear or out of joy, externally one does the same items of devotional service. And our painting for this verse, this is Krishna and Balaram inviting us to the spiritual world. And here we have the chiefs of all of the 5 major rasas with Krishna that one can awaken to in spontaneous love. So those are the first 3 verses that establish kind of our compass, our orientation, our direction for starting this path. In one sense you could say they're part of the path, but they also give you an idea. If you don't even have any affection for God, you don't have any affection for Guru or for the mantra, you really can't even start to enter into the path to Vrindaban. Now in the path to Vrindaban, we started out with verse 4, which is what we talk about, dealing with sound, what we talk about, what we listen to, which indicates both who we already are, because our speaking reveals our current state of consciousness, and it also creates our future state of consciousness. And that is what the Swami compared that ordinary talk, which is primarily, my dear friends, glorifying ourselves and criticizing others, or just talking about the ordinary things of the world. He compared this to a prostitute who steals our spiritual wealth, who may look young and pretty and look like she's offering a good time, but actually is simply interested in taking our wealth. And interestingly enough, he compared talking about liberation to a tigress that eats our very self. We want to be bound to the Lord in service, and talking about liberation and how much we can't wait to be free of the material world works against this idea of the Lord's eternal servant. Even he said we should give up affection for the Lord in his form of Narayana, Lakshmipati, because the affection for Lakshmipati is mixed with the desire to enjoy the Lakshmi, the opulence of Narayan. And he says we should conquer the prostitute of mundane talk, the tigress of liberation, and desires for the opulence of Vaikuntha by having the jewel of service to Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan, this beautiful, attractive jewel. And then reviewing again verse 5. So let's say we're on this path, and we're already talking about spiritual things, but next he says, what about what you're doing? And here we look at, does our walk match our talk? Do I talk about spiritual things, but what do I do? Of course, we have the 4 regulative principles: meat, eating, illicit sex, intoxication, gambling. But in general, do I do things that are against the principles of bhakti? And Raghunath Das Goswami compares the urges to do things against bhakti to thieves on the road, lust and his friends. And although the shining path of bhakti is there, they have a rope across. The rope is our wicked deeds. And lust and his friends have our wicked deeds around our neck, and they are pulling us like a dog on a leash, practically forcing us to do things against our higher principles. He said to get free of this by remembering the crane who looks like a great yogi until he sees a fish. The hypocrite. This is being a hypocrite to others. And how Krishna kills a demon in the form of a crane. And the devotees of that killer of Baka, they are protectors. And Bhaktivinoda mentions Arjuna, Bhishma, Narada. This is our oil painting for this verse. And if we cry out to them with humility, Please save me. I am being killed by Lust and his friends, who have me bound around the neck with the rope of wicked deeds. Then they will send away these enemies. The instructions of the great devotees can also cut these ropes around our neck. So that's a review of Friday's class for those of you who weren't here, or those who just like to have a review. And now we're going to go on to finishing Manah-siksa. So the benediction with Manah-siksa is that anyone who sings these verses with a sweet voice, trying to understand their meaning, will attain service for Radha and Krishna in Vrindaban. So for that, we're going to be singing the verses. And we sing it to the tune of Jagannathastakam, except don't change the last line. So sing the last line in the same meter. All right, so now we're coming to verse 6. By this time we have affection for Guru, Krishna, and the holy name, and we have the jewel of love for Radha Krishna. We're being protected by Bhishma and Arjuna and Narada on the shining path. We're speaking about spiritual things, and at this point, my dear friends, we're doing spiritual things. If you were to look at the life of someone at this point, their speech and their action are all really good, and you'd think, well, this is really a saintly person. And now Raghunath Goswami is going to go deeper. What do you really want? Okay, so we could sing this together. Are cheta projaka pata kutinati barakara sharan mutre snat vada hasi katamaatmanamapimam Saratram Gandharva Giridhara Pada Prema Vilasat Sudam Bodau Snatva Twamapi Nitaram Mame Vastukaya. O ruffian mind, why do you burn yourself and me, the soul, by bathing in the trickling urine of the great donkey of full-blown hypocrisy and duplicity? Instead, you should always bathe in the ocean of love emanating from the lotus feet of Sri Sri Gandharvika Giridhari, thereby delighting yourself and me. So previously the deceit was that I talk about spiritual things, but I do sinful things. I do wrong things. And we would find this in every tradition, yes? People who are good preachers and secretly have bad habits. In this verse, though, we're talking about deceiving ourselves, which of course includes deceiving others, but the primary person we're deceiving here is ourselves, because when you're pulled around the neck by wicked deeds, you generally know you're doing wicked deeds. Right? Generally, although you may excuse them in so many ways. But this one is not usually even aware of, except by some symptoms. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, this is for the person who's defeated lust and his friends. They're dead. They're dead, and the person is thinking, oh, now I'm getting clean by serving the Lord. And they're not noticing that the source of their bath is a very large donkey. Now he says this urine of the donkey burns. And this burning sensation is the prime symptom that we're taking bath in the wrong place. So Bhaktivinoda in his commentary analyzes three kinds of devotees and the different ways in which each of them can be bathing in donkey urine. Now, I don't take these as some sort of absolute boxes because there's certainly overlap between them, but it's a very good guideline. I'd like to think as we're going through here, what is the common thread between all these ways of bathing in donkey urine? So here we have what's called the Swanista Sadhaka, and these, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, are householders. Now, I would imagine that if he were here in 2016, he would include some single people here. Because we have today a lot of people who are not married, but they're not renunciates either. So these are people who are not renunciates. In Bhaktivinoda Thakur's day, they would have had a family. They're being maintained directly by the Lord. They're just engaging in activities of bhakti. They don't have a job. They don't have a business. So the ways that we can bathe in donkey urine is in the name of service, looking actually for sense gratification. Saying I'm doing service, but the motive is sense gratification. Another way is to serve rich materialists instead of humble Vaishnavas. And such a mentality can become even institutionalized. So I like to tell the story. I was given a small inheritance at one point, and I gave it as a donation to one temple, actually, for the cows. And then when I visited that temple, they treated me like royalty. You know, they were giving me garlands and sweets and everything I wanted. And I said, you know, I'm not a rich person. That was a one-time thing, you know. And the next time I came again, they treated me like royalty. And again, I said to them, you know, I don't have more. And then it stopped. It was quite interesting. And I really got to see there that there was quite a difference between how people were treated when they thought you were just, oh, here's one of the ordinary devotees or guests, or here's a rich person. So this is donkey urine. And it may look like service. You may think, well, I'm flattering this rich, or it could be famous person, influential person. I'm giving special flattery to this rich, famous, or influential person because they can do so much more service, you know? But it really is donkey urine. I mean, we think about, do we really know, right, who's the most influential person? When Steve Jobs was coming to the Hare Krishna temple on Sunday, he was just a poor college student. I mean, discriminating like this is not purifying. It's not really service. And then meditating on wealth and opulence. Especially these devotees, they're just dependent on the Lord. They may be living very simply. So even though they don't have an outside means of earning a livelihood, they may be meditating, oh, I wish I could have more of this, I wish I could have more of that. Their meditation is not on Krishna. Now this is also a really interesting one, and we see this a lot in the Hare Krishna movement, that if people want to bolster their cause, they have a certain cause, right? Most of us have a cause. Most, or two, or three, or four. Most of us have things that like we really feel passionate about, right? And we want to win. We're not detached. So when we want to win, then we're willing to use means that are other than shastric, because we're interested in winning. We're not really interested in truth. Of course, we think we're interested in truth. So this is being attached to twisted logic, twisting logic, instead of just relying on the Shastra to convince others. And sometimes these people artificially take up the dress of a renunciate just so that they'll get the praise and the honor of others. And we've also seen this. You see this sometimes in India with professional beggars who have a family, right, and they artificially dress as a renunciate to collect donations, then they go back to their family. Then he talks about the parinista sadhaka, and I find it fascinating that this is a category that only have two ways of bathing in donkey urine. They seem to be on the safest path. These are the householders, and today we would have to include also single but not renounced people who have a job, who have a business. They're following all the rules and regulations. So we've shown them here as living very piously in the world, and Radha Krishna putting all the wealth into the man's briefcase. I'm sure sometimes it could be the woman's briefcase, but this was just a symbolic drawing. So this is the parinista, and one way the parinista can bathe in donkey urine is by making an external show of being very strict, but secretly having so many material attachments. Now these would not be gross sinful activities, because that was already finished in the previous verse. So we're not talking about someone who's engaging in gross sinful activities, but someone who's maintaining, isn't that one of the offenses on chanting? To maintain material attachments even after having heard so many instructions on this matter. So this is a problem. And making this show to themselves also. Again, because this is self-deceit. I am strict sadhaka. But actually maintaining so many attachments. And this is a very interesting one. I was just meditating last night on how subtle this can be. This is preferring the association of non-devotees, who we've symbolized here as karmis, jnanis, and yogis, to that of the simple devotees. And we see there's a devotee in the background kind of shrugging his shoulders and walking away. I guess I don't belong here. And here's our parinista sadhaka getting urinated on by the big donkey. Raghunath Das Goswami says he's a big donkey, or she's a big donkey. And with the karmis and the jnanis and the yogis surrounding them. And I was thinking that a lot of the media today would be how this is demonstrated. You know, a lot of social media, television, movies, would be this donkey urine. You know, there's a kirtan going on, but I'd rather watch the football game. You know? There's a class going on, I'd rather just hang out on Facebook and look at cat videos or something. You know, but I prefer the association of the non-devotees. Or sometimes you'll hear somebody say, well, you know, the non-devotees, they have many good qualities, and those devotees, they can be so critical and they can be so political. Better to hang out with the non-devotees. So this is also a kind of donkey urine bath. Then we have the nirapeksha, the renunciates, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur lists the most variety of ways that they can be bathing in donkey urine, which again maybe indicates that this is the most dangerous. So this is for the brahmacharis, the vanaprasthas, and the sannyasis. Oh boy, here's a big one, right? I am an advanced devotee. Now you got to remember, the people at this point are advanced devotees. They literally, genuinely are. By the time you've gotten to this verse of Manah-siksa, you're talking about people who, you know, they have love for Radha and Krishna, one-pointed for Radha Krishna, love for the surrendering process, love for Guru, love for the mantra. They're following the instructions of Rupa and Sanatan. They're not identifying as good or bad people in the world, but as Krishna's agents. They talk about Krishna. They're not doing anything sinful. That's pretty high, right? I mean, how many people in the world are like that? What percentage? Not very many. So you can see why a person at this point might think, well, I'm advanced. Right? Does that make sense to all of you? Right? I mean, I distinctly remember one time I was in the Boston Temple. This was 41 years ago, I guess. And I got really sick, and I was complaining to Radha Gopi Vallabha. And I said, but I'm such a good devotee. I chant my 16 rounds, I go to Mangalarti, I follow the regular principles, I read Prabhupada's books, I preach Krishna consciousness, I serve the deity, I'm good. Why are you making me sick? So this mood that I am advanced, this is a kind of bathing in donkey urine. And then being disrespectful to other devotees because one is renounced. So we've also seen this a lot. In fact, I'd say this mentality has really torn ISKCON apart. We had the Sannyas Rahasta Wars, as Satsuk Maharaj called them in Prabhupada Lilamrita, where we had the sannyasis and the brahmacharis who were really persecuting the householders, the women and the children, at least severely discriminating against them, with this mood that I'm so much better than you because I'm in the renounced order. As Kalakantru pointed out the other day, you know, the vast majority of those persons ended up becoming grahastas anyway. But this kind of mood, I'm better just because I'm renounced. And again, the person can think, well, it's true, you know, the renounced orders are good and they're important and they're valuable and it is a better ashram, therefore I who am in that ashram must also be better. You understand? And I have to say I'm better, because if I don't say I'm better, I won't be glorifying the renounced ashram, and that won't be good for the society. Over-collecting, and again, we found this was a problem for the Swanista sadhaka also, even meditating on over-collecting, but for the nirapeksha, the renunciate, collecting far more than they can ever use for service. You know, and we've also seen this. We've also seen it. I remember hearing from someone that after one sannyasi had given up his vows at a particular place long ago, and they went to his rooms and they found it full of gold-plated fixtures and piles of cashmere sweaters. You know, so this collecting far, far more than you really need for your service. Oh, this is a biggie. This is a biggie. In the name of preaching, simply trying to attract the opposite sex. And this is, again, it's a problem in every tradition. In the name of preaching, in the name of counseling, in the name of helping, and it can be women to men also. I have a friend who was, you know, counseling the brahmacharis in private, and eventually she had some difficulty. So this is a very big one. And one can be saying, oh yes, you know, I really care about the ladies, or I really care about, you know, and there's really something else going on there. And neglecting one's own sadhana to befriend materialistic people hoping for wealth. So you see the books are on the floor, the beads are on the floor, the altar is neglected. And again, this is something that we've run into a lot in our Hare Krishna movement. Well, I don't have time to chant 16 rounds, I don't have time to read Prabhupada's books because I'm building this temple or I'm having this project and I've got to go out and flatter materialistic people. And it's quite a common, and I'm so surrendered, I'm doing this for Krishna, I'm sacrificing myself for Krishna, and really you're bathing in donkey urine. Now, this is mentioned, of course, also with the Swanista, but I think it's interesting Bhaktivinoda talks about this specifically with the renunciate, but I see it applies to everybody, that while you're doing your spiritual things, you're meditating on wealth or materialistic things. So you're there chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, and all you're thinking about is, I don't have enough money in the bank. I don't like my job. I'm 47 and I'm still not married. You're meditating on that while you're in japa, while you're in the kirtan, while you're doing service. Your meditation is going towards your material anxieties. So people look at you, and maybe you're there in japa crying, but maybe the reason you're crying is that your investments didn't do well that morning, So to other people, they see, wow, what a dedicated sadhaka, and your mind and heart is elsewhere. And this is being attached to the dress and formalities and neglecting the essence. So we've sort of symbolized that again with the beads on the floor, the books on the floor, the neglected altar. Although this isn't about grossly neglecting, this is really symbolic. In other words, your real attention is on the externals, which Rupa Goswami calls niyamagraha. You're doing the formalities as formalities. And that's where your attention is going. Your attention is going, did I say the mantras properly? Do I know the right rituals? Is my dhoti, is my silk dhoti, did it get ironed properly? And is it exactly tied? And the real essence you're neglecting. In this last one, we had a very hard time trying to illustrate this one. And this is neglecting the main purpose of spiritual life. So we've shown this symbolically by their hearts are locked up in a box while they're in kirtan. So this is, you're not realizing the actual essence of what you're doing. You're going through the rituals, and you may even have a lot of enthusiasm, but you're not giving your emotions, you're not giving your heart to the process. You're not giving your heart to Krishna. Do you follow what I'm saying?
No.
You want to know more about that? So, because we talked about way back in verse 1, having love for Krishna and love for Guru. And sometimes we don't want to give our emotions. We're giving our mind, we're giving our philosophy, we're giving our action, but we're holding back on our emotions. We're not allowing ourselves to feel anything. Even though bhakti is all about emotion, that's the whole essence of bhakti. And we're restraining our emotion. We're not allowing it. Can anyone think about, and we will have time, Krishna willing, for questions at the end also, does anyone see the common thread in all of these ways of bathing in donkey urine? Yes, Kamali.
That they're hidden, they're not overt, they're not noticed, like you said, even by ourselves, we may not know what to speak of others.
Yes, okay, they're hidden, they're not overt, so we may not notice them, and what to speak, others may not notice them. Yes, Sukaba.
Maybe that on the superficial level, it looks really good. Oh, I guess that's what she said.
Looks really good superficially.
Superficially, but then really inside, you're not even, you don't even know, you don't even really know that you're missing out.
You're missing out something, yes.
One word to sort of sum up all that, I think, maybe duplicitous.
Yes, duplicitous and deceitfulness. But you're deceiving yourself. You're deceiving yourself. So I gave an example, I can't remember where I gave this example, maybe it was in Gainesville. So some years ago I was praying to Krishna and I said, my dear Krishna, I'm so tired of learning through suffering. We have this thing in the Hare Krishna movement that whenever you suffer, you say, oh, it's Krishna's purifying me. That's our little ISKCON speak, right? So I said, can you please purify me through joy? Can we just stop with this suffering purification? I said, at least give me a chance. Give me a chance to learn through joy. So then I was offered some service which was, I would say, the Urmila custom designed, like we talk about doing service according to our nature, but this was as if someone had taken my nature and just absolutely custom designed a service for me, and it was so blissful. I was working on an encyclopedia to use writing, which I like to do, and then we had to put the summaries into little boxes onto the computer, which means you had to get exactly the right number of letters per line, so it was kind of an intellectual puzzle, and I like that kind of thing. And I was in a beautiful place in the country, an incredible prasadam, incredible kirtans, incredible association. The leadership of the project was just first class. I had no anxieties. There were no personality conflicts. It was perfect. I was so enlivened that I was working 14, 16 hours a day without any fatigue. Now, we were doing this project to make money to build the Mayapur temple, though this was a long time ago. This was not the current design of the temple or the current management of the temple. This was quite a long time ago. So I did everything on the encyclopedia, everything. I finished everything, and I had just 3 weeks there to work on it. It was an intense service. And then the only thing that was left to do was to write about the Mayapur temple. And I couldn't do it. I wanted to do it, and I just was blank. I couldn't write anything. And I only had 3 weeks, so I was under a lot of pressure, and this one day, I just wasn't productive. I couldn't write one line. And I didn't know why. And then it was just really just Krishna in the heart said, because you're envious of the Mayapur temple.